there, it's Joe Pardavila. Welcome back to Forbes Books Radio. And Kamala Harris once said that the American dream belongs to all of us. And joining me today is a man who is living the American dream. Wait till you hear his story. His name is Tim T. Mercer. He's the managing partner of Intelibox and the author of the upcoming book and podcast titled Bootstrapped Millionaire. Hey there, Tim.
Hey, Joe. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
All right, Tim, I don't mean to bust your chops, but the word bootstrap gets used a lot. You know, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and all this stuff. So what does it mean to you to be a bootstrapped millionaire?
Well, for me, Joe, it's all about believing in yourself. I know for me, I didn't grow up with a lot, didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I always had the desire to want more out of life. And I think for the men and women out there who have that same type of desire, we all can achieve financial success. It just requires a lot of hard work and faith in yourself, believing in God, and trusting the process. The Bootstrap Millionaire for me is just that. Men and women who started from nothing and have built successful and prosperous businesses. And those are the individuals, in my opinion, who are really truly making the biggest difference in the economy and in the world today.
So let's get into your backstory, Tim, and the inspiration for your book and podcast, Bootstrap Millionaire. You said you've come from nothing, so take us back to the beginning of the Tim T. Mercer story.
Well, I'm originally from South Carolina, which is a small rural part of South Carolina. I talk about it in the book, but there's a documentary about my hometown or the area in which I grew up in. They call it the Corridor of Shame. And what the documentary talked about was the fact that area which I grew up has the poorest school system in the entire United States. So to say that we grew up with nothing and grew up from poverty, I mean, it was so true. We didn't have much, very rural town, but the thing that helped me was the fact that my mother instilled in us the ability to work hard, and we had faith. We had faith in believing that we could achieve more. And so my life is obviously filled with a lot of failures. I've had a tremendous amount of failures, particularly in business, because I didn't grow up with or have any mentors that really taught me about what business was about. I realized that going through those trial and errors, it really helped me to become a better person, a better man, and a better business person. So my life was filled with all those ups and downs, but yet success was still something that can be obtained.
You talk about growing up in this corridor of shame, having no mentors. So how did you get out of it?
Well, I think the first thing for me was having faith in God and believing that there was something better for myself. The second thing is I took advantage of the slim opportunities that were presented to me. There wasn't many, but the ones that were presented, I took advantage of it. For example, I went in the military. The military was the only option for me coming from a small rural town in which I grew up in. College was not anything viable for me. So I took advantage of going into the military, and that really was what helped me see that there was more out there in the world by going in the military. And then that really opened up the door for me to get involved in a lot of other different things.
Well, without oversimplifying things too much, what you're saying is you don't think you'd be who you are today if you didn't go to the military.
No, I don't. I truly don't.
Wow. So talk to me about your military experience. I mean, what was that like? A kid coming from where you said the corridor of shame, didn't have anything. What was the military like for you?
Well, to be honest, man, the military was a great experience for me. It taught me discipline, which was one of the main things that I got from being in the military. I mean, it taught you discipline. You did learn to do hard work. I'm right. You had to be a hard worker. You had to overcome some of your fears, which it helped me to do that. But it also opened up opportunity for me to see the world in a different light. I mean, I got a chance to live in Germany, travel abroad, got a chance to meet a lot of different people. So coming from a small rural town when I didn't see any of those type of things other than watching it on TV, going in the military allowed me to see it firsthand. And it helped me to realize that there was opportunity out there for me, but I just had to go out there and grab it and take hold of it and work hard and press forward and overcome my fears and even overcome the disadvantages that I was facing, because an African-American male in the time in which I was growing up, there was still some disadvantages, racism and things like that going on. But I had the faith of knowing that I could overcome those things. And even though those things still do exist today, It's my faith that continues to help me to press forward and try to overcome those.
And how long were you in the military for?
Well, I did 4 years.
Okay, so you do your 4 years in the military. You're probably jacked. You're physically fit. You're mentally fit. What does Tim T. Mercer do next?
I ended up going to college after the military. That wasn't necessarily my plan. My plan was actually to stay in the military and retire. However, I was recruited or approached by a recruiter from DeVry University who started telling me about the world of technology and showed me a blueprint as to how I could go to school and to learn technology. And that was fascinating to me because I never thought about going to college. So when she shared that with me, I was intrigued by it and I looked into it and ultimately ended up enrolling at DeVry University. And that's when I first started learning more about technology.
Now, did you have any like technological acumen? Were you like pre Geek Squad days? I mean, were you into tech? Were you maybe working on tech when you were in the military?
No, I didn't have any tech background. Now, in the military, I was in telecommunications, but we're talking about in the late 80s, early 90s. So when we say telecommunications, the military, it was a little behind when it came to tech.
Basically, walkie talkies and fax machines?
Yeah, we were doing things like that. Yeah. But IT had just really started going in an upward boom. I mean, obviously the internet had became popular in the late 90s and wireless communication started becoming very popular. The cell phones became very popular. That intrigued me really because my recruiter told me that it was a booming industry. I'm not a geek. I wasn't a tech guy really. I wasn't tinkering with computers or anything, but I was intrigued by the fact that if this is an opportunity, if it's a booming industry, then maybe this is something that I can attach to that can help me achieve my financial goals. And that's the reason why I got involved. But it turned out to be a great thing because I mean, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the fact that I got involved in technology. I don't think I would ever have had the success that I've had if it wasn't for getting involved in the tech business.
Let me see if I get the timeline straight. So you're out of DeVry, what, early 90s?
Yeah, well, yeah, I started in DeVry in 92. Yeah, I ended up graduating in 95. Yeah, so around 95. Yeah,
So I'm trying to think tech around 1995. You're looking at what? AOL, Netscape, AIM Messenger. This is around the time frame, right?
that's right.
So in which specific field in the tech world did you get involved with when you graduated from DeVry?
My specialty, well, got trained in computer programming. However, when I graduated from DeVry, my first job was working for a wireless billing system provider. It was a software company that did wireless billing. The mobile phone industry had just came about, and this company that was from Germany came and they developed a billing system that did all of the billing for these wireless phone calls. It was back then it wasn't like it is today where you pay one flat fee and you just make all the calls you want. Back then, you actually paid for every call that you made. So there was their software did the rating and the billing for all of those wireless carriers. I was one of the individuals who went to Germany, spent a year in Germany, got trained on that system, and really learned it well. And my specialty was in setting up that billing system for wireless providers. That's where I really started having a tremendous amount of success. And that's where I actually gotten into entrepreneurship, got the entrepreneurship bug, and started making a ton of money from just going around working with these wireless carriers and helping them set up their billing systems.
Now, just to remind anyone listening, in the early 90s, cell phones were not as sexy and as sleek as they are now. They were briefcases and giant bricks. So did you see a future explosion in cellular communications?
No, I think I just had blind ambition because when I was at DeVry, I graduated at the top of my class, right? So I was the valedictorian in my class, and at DeVry at that time, DeVry would help you find jobs, right? That was the great thing about their curriculum; they would help you find a job after you graduated. I think I was just a little ambitious. I didn't want to take any of the jobs that DeVry was offering. I guess I was a little cocky for that matter. I felt like I don't want the same jobs that they're getting. So I went out and found me a recruiter, one of the recruiters, and I went to a recruiting firm and said, "Hey, listen, I want you to help me to find employment. I'm graduating from the RI, etc." And I remember they gave me an aptitude test, right? Which was just so crazy. This is the first time I ever took one of those tests. And I didn't, it was a test to evaluate what kind of companies they would try to match you up with.
And now this is one of those tests that President Trump took. You didn't have to identify like an elephant or something like that.
Right. No, no. And man, I'm telling you, I completely bombed that test. I didn't do well. And I was like, man, that was like a rude awakening for me. I'm like, man, I'm the top in my class and I just failed this test. And I remember the recruiter told me, well, listen, you didn't do well on the test. However, there's a company that's coming from Europe, a software company. Maybe, we're gonna send them your resume and see how that works. And they sent the resume to the company, and I went and interviewed with them, and they hired me.
All right, so you're hired. You're probably making good money with this cellular billing company. What happened next?
I worked for the company for about a year and a half, but I felt that I had more value because I saw that I was bringing a lot of value to the clients. I knew that my value to my clients was very strong. So I decided that I asked the company, one of my managers, for a raise, and he refused. He felt that I didn't necessarily deserve a raise, or for whatever reason he refused the raise. So at that point in time, I went back and I went to a recruiter, and I knew that there were a lot of these carriers hiring people who had my skill set. So I went to a recruiter and that's how I got into independent contracting. So I basically decided, hey, listen, I'm going to leave the company. I'm going to become an independent contractor. I'm going to work for myself. And I did, and that's how I got into entrepreneurship. That was my first introduction to entrepreneurship. That's when I had to set up a company and set things in place to really know how to run a business. Even though I was in business by myself, I still had to set those things up. So that was my first introduction to the world of entrepreneurship.
Well, it's like Bruce Springsteen said, you can't start a fire without a spark. And your spark to your career and to you becoming what you are today was because you didn't get that raise. I mean, can you even imagine what your life would be like if you ended up getting the raise and just had a nice regular job there?
Man, listen, if he would have gave me the raise right, yeah, I probably would have not achieved the things that I've achieved today. I'm grateful for that setback, right? There's an old cliche that a setback is nothing more than a setup for a comeback, and I'm grateful for that setback, and even today, I'm grateful for sometimes when things don't work out. I'm grateful for that because I look at that as this is nothing more than that door is closing so that a wider door will open.
It's funny, if you listen to any entrepreneur who succeeded or even didn't succeed, everyone always says, you learn from your failures. But if you look at the situation, I mean, you could probably be an office drone right now and not owning a multi-million-dollar company.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
I want to take a step back and talk about the fact how you knew your worth. And I think that's a super important thing for anyone listening right now, whether you're just starting out in business or you're working your ass off right now. How did you know what your worth was at the time?
In particular, I knew the value that I was bringing to the client. The client knew that I was helping them in such a tremendous way. And so that let me know that I have value, right? The client knew that I was helping them, and much of the success of them deploying the system was as a result of my contribution. And of course, I wasn't going to my company and trying to be greedy or anything and saying, "Hey, I want more." I went back to saying, "Hey, I would like my fair contribution. I know that I'm helping you guys in a way." And then obviously we know that companies make a lot of money from outsourcing our own services. So once I saw that, I began to realize that I can actually leverage my own skill sets on the open marketplace and make more money by doing it on my own. What was the company really giving me that I could not have not gotten on my own? That's the way I looked at it. And then when I started seeing the monetary gain, then that really just opened up my eyes. Like, hey, look, I mean, this is the free marketplace allows you to be able to make as much money as you like, depending upon how hard you want to work and depending upon how aggressive you want to become with it.
All right, so you're an independent contractor. Walk me through the evolution of Tim T. Mercer, private contractor, to Tim T. Mercer, managing partner of Intelibox. How did that all happen?
When I got into entrepreneurship as an independent contractor consultant, obviously I wanted to really learn more about entrepreneurship. My teaching, or how I began to learn more about it, is I got involved in network marketing. And network marketing, even though I didn't make a lot of money in network marketing, it really opened me up for and helped me to be able to learn more about how business worked, particularly on the sales side. And I used to read these books. Zig Ziglar, started reading books about some of the Rockefellers. And I remember there was a phrase that I think it was JD Rockefeller that had a phrase that said, "I'd rather have 1% of 100 people's efforts than 100% of my own." And that phrase stuck with me for a long time, and it still do today. I'm like, why did he would rather have 1% of 100 people's efforts than 100% of our own? And really what he was saying was that 100 people can do more work than I can do on my own. So just give me 1% of their efforts, and I'll exchange that 100% of my own efforts, leveraging the efforts of others. That's what was the one of the wealth principles, is being able to leverage the efforts of others. So as an independent contractor, I realized that I was in business by myself. So I was only going to scale but so far. So at that time, then I started going, and some of my friends, some of my other contracting consultant friends, I would go and find consulting gigs, and I would go secure those gigs, and I would bring those guys onto the contracts with me. So I would say, hey, I got a contract over here. Listen, you guys can come and work with me on the contract. Obviously, they were getting the rate that they wanted, but I would basically put a markup on their rate and sell it to the client. And obviously, that was a way for me to build another stream of income, because I now have a few other people working on my behalf. When I started seeing that, then I started realizing, wow, this is really what companies do. This is how the game works, right? That's ultimately what I ended up doing, and was able to build a small boutique successful consulting business where I had other consultants working with me on various projects. I'm still working the projects myself, but also making income from their efforts. And then that ultimately that's ended up growing to the point where when I got into government contracting, that's when things really began to explode, because we were able to get involved in much more larger contract opportunities. Because in the commercial space, we were kind of limited, particularly as a minority owned company. You're kind of limited in the commercial space. But the government, when I began to really understand government contracting, and I saw how there were opportunities for minority owned companies, and these opportunities could be huge. All the thing you had to do is learn how the government procurement process worked. Then that's when things really opened up for us.
Very cool. So you're working in the private sector, you're killing it in the military sector, but what exactly does Intelibox do?
We've kind of evolved over the years in terms of our service offerings, right? When we first started out as iBox Global, which was our the original company name, we were providing consulting services. But when we got into doing government contracting, that's when we got into actually selling technology solutions to the federal space. A lot of the hardware and software that the government buys, we're a reseller of those products and services. And even to today, we've actually evolved even to now where we are currently. We provide cybersecurity training. We're a reseller of various cybersecurity training. And we also provide consulting services around cybersecurity, where you have federal agencies, state, local, educational organizations that have a need for cybersecurity consulting. So we sell those products and services, those solutions, as well as training.
Very cool. All right. Well, before I let you go, we got to talk about your book, Bootstrapped Millionaire. And there is a chapter titled, Don't Let Fear Overpower Opportunity. That's obviously easier said than done, but how do people not let fear overpower opportunity?
Well, I think, listen, we all have fear. So it's either fear of loss or the fear of unknown. So fear is always with us. The thing for me that overcomes fear is doing your homework, for lack of better words, right? Gain as much information about what you're getting involved in as possible, because where we typically lose is for simply not being educated in that particular area. And I've lost a tremendous amount of money over the years. I mean, we talk about in the book about how I literally lost $1 million over the course of about 5 to 7 years. And much of that was due to the fact that I did not know. I was financially illiterate. And people take advantage of you when you are illiterate in any particular subject. How you mitigate that fear is by learning as much as you can, and get as educated as possible on those subjects where you feel you're weakest at, and then just go for it. Because at that point, if I feel that I know enough information, then I can just go out there and try. Maybe if I'm even taking little baby steps, but then you put action behind it. Obviously, just having faith and believing that you can achieve it, believing that God has got your back and that He'll help you through it. That's why in the book there's a chapter that talks about faith without work is dead, right? We can be hopeful and have faith about something, but if we don't put forth the work, it would never come to fruition. So yeah, I think that's the key, is just learning as much as you can and then taking action.
His name is Tim T. Mercer. He is the managing partner of Intelibox and the author of the upcoming book and podcast titled Bootstrapped Millionaire. Tim, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing some words of wisdom.
Thank you so much, Joe.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.